फाइनली राधे राधे। हेलो राधे राधे। अच्छा, इनका ऑडियो कनेक्टेड नहीं है। नितिन जी आपका है?
राधे राधे। संध्या दी, आपको होस्ट बना दूं?
हाँ हाँ हाँ, बना दो। मैं तो कब से वेट कर रही थी।
ठीक है,
ठीक है,
बनाती
थैंक्स। राधे राधे।
हूँ।
राधे राधे एवरीवन। We will be starting. I am going to make, yes. We'll be starting. मैं को होस्ट हूँ शायद। आई एम नॉट द।
Okay. Sandhya is host. Radhe Radhe. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Hope you had a great weekend or having a great start to your weekend. So let me share my screen and we will get started with our Bhagavad Gita session, starting with our Soul Soup segment. So with our opening prayers rather. So let me share my screen. Are you able to see it? Okay. So we'll
Yes.
get started with our opening prayers, like we always do. गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः वसुदेव सुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you. So let's get started with our topic of our discussion, starting with the soul soup segment, like we always do. So we are on the mind management series. So let's get started. Okay, science of mind management, we are doing that. And we will talk about the power of habits. We will build on this topic. So it's not a biology class or a psychology class, but then as part of this, you will continue to get exposure to some of these topics so that you're able to appreciate the sophisticated machinery, how it works at the most fundamental level. So it all starts with neurons. Like neurons, whenever we decide to do any physical or mental work, our brain fires neurons in different regions, including the sensory motor region, right, which controls our motor nerves and stuff, and our senses. That okay, extend your hand here, or look here, or think here. The neocortex and the prefrontal lobes. Okay, all of these three, it fires the neurons. But then the beauty is that, as you do that, what it does is, like we create shortcuts when we are working on something. We do have a habit to create shortcuts. And for our ease, Windows has created shortcuts for us as well when we work on computers, like Control Z, Control X, Control C, Control V is the biggest one, right? That most frequently used, I should say. So similarly, our brain has a self-programming ability. So if this is our brain, and it has a self-programming ability, which enables it to create these shortcuts. And as it sees activities which are repeated, as you can see, it can easily create shortcuts and have some kind of an auto, efficiency kind of a, it keeps on getting optimized, okay, so to say. So it keeps on getting optimized as you continue to use those. And those neural sequences Where are they stored? These shortcuts, they are stored in a place called basal ganglia, part of our brain. That's where these shortcuts or neural sequences, they get stored there as part of the brain. For this part of the brain is responsible for learning habits and emotions, and this enables the brain to engage in these activities with greater ease in the future. Right? Optimization that we talk about. Now humans, they put an endeavor to become CMM level 5. Right? In IT industry, there are different levels, CMM 1 to CMM 5. CMM 5 being, CMM 1 is where you don't have any processes, and then in 2 you define processes. In 3 the processes are defined, but you have dependencies on heroes. In 4 you don't have dependencies on people, but you have very streamlined processes. And in level 5 you not only have processes, but you are continually optimizing them as well. Okay, that is the level 5. Now we have to put in so much effort to get to level 5, right? In companies, but brain has that. God has given that programmability to reach level 5 fairly quickly, and it can optimize by creating those shortcuts as long as you are engaging your mind. And this is the brain's way of simplifying the work and making it more efficient. A classic case being typewriting. So if you, when you somebody starts to typewrite, it seems like an arduous task. You have to exert yourself to, figure out the keys and then press the right key. In fact, when I joined IT industry, I used to struggle to find alphabets on keyboard. Okay, it's hard to believe now, but it was used to be the case initially. I mean, I would give up that this alphabet does not exist on this keyboard. Okay, those kind of situations happen as well. So yeah, typewriting, when you do that, but then it would take anybody a few minutes to type even a few words. But after they continue with this activity, now then they can type without even looking at it, right? It seems like the person has gotten a siddhi. Have they truly gotten a siddhi? Yeah, it is a siddhi. It is a material siddhi you get. But how does you get that? How do you get that siddhi? Because your brain starts to take control over, and it all starts getting stored in that particular basal ganglia region that I'm talking about, and that continual optimization automatically kicks in. So these neural sequences, they take care of the task that is fired. And with repeated practice, uh, the brain can form program for the entire words, not even a few alphabets, but for the entire words, to an extent that you don't even have to look, and you can type in multiple sequences without really paying attention to it. Okay, that is the level you can reach. Okay, which is nothing short of a siddhi in the material world. And that is how smart our brain is. And after a year of training, you can type at the speed of 50 words a minute and above. That can happen as well. It's all automated. Your brain is continually doing that, and your basal ganglia region is the home for that particular skill within our brain, right? So something that humans are trying to simulate in real life, like I said, CMM level 1 to CMM level 5, from having a lack of process, or to all the way up to not only have process in place, but continual improvement as well. Our brain has that kind of a sophisticated machinery already. God has implanted it here, and all we need to do is keep on utilizing it, and then that skill can become better as well as optimized over time. So for now, basal ganglia, we'll continue to build on that. The reason I introduced it is because this is the section of the brain which stores, like I said, the learnings, the habits, and the emotions. Okay, like prefrontal cortex we had spoken about, which controls our willpower. This is where our emotions and all the habits, they get resolved, and all the shortcuts that our brain creates around some of the activities we perform as well. So with that said, let's move on to the shloka of the day. We are going to introduce the new shloka 5.19. I'm going to recite it and we'll pick up 2 to 3 hands today. Ihaiv terjitah sargo yesham samye sthitam manah nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te sthitah. Okay, let's take 2 to 3 hands.
I see my hand raised. And Tejas ji, so let's hear
You
him
can
from
call
Radhika.
you can call yourself. Okay, yeah. Yes, Tejas.
Radhe Radhe. Ihaiva tairajita sargo yesham samaye stitam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmada brahmani tishachitaha.
Yeah, tasmad brahmani te sthita.
Okay.
Arun ji, Radhe Radhe.
Arun.
Radhe Radhe. इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गो येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्माद् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिताः.
Very nice, Arun. Thank you. Go ahead, Sandhya, and then we can take probably one more hand and freeze it.
Okay. इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गो येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिताः.
Very nice. Thank you, Sandhya. Let's take Chandruji one more, maybe.
Hey, Chandruji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
इहवतैरचित सर्गो ईशां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निरोषां हि समां ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्माणि ते स्थितः.
Very nice. Thank you,
Radhe
Chandru.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Okay. Yeah, Lakshmi ji. Okay. Last one. Lakshmi ji, please go ahead.
Yes, Lakshmi ji, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe everyone. Ihaiva Taichika Sargo Isham Sami Brahmana Nirdosham Samam Brahma Tasma Radhe Radhe, thank you.
Lakshmi ji, a lot of disturbance at your end, so I don't know, background or what. Okay, nevertheless, thank you. Let's get started. So in this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying, those whose minds are established in equality of vision, which we spoke about in the previous shloka, conquer the cycle of birth and death in this very life. Now he's saying they conquer the cycle of birth and death in this very life. Then he goes on to say they possess the flawless qualities of God and therefore seated in the absolute truth. So let's start dissecting this shloka. We'll touch upon one of the fundamental concepts related to God realization today as part of this shloka. So let's get started. So now we spoke about this, right, in our previous shloka, that a saint, cow, elephant, dog, basically. Now, a truly learned person, when you have this vision, right, you look at divinity in all of them. You look at, with an equal vision, all of them. So this is what God is talking about. And when that happens, that's when you are beyond the cycle of life and death, is essentially what Krishna is talking about, right? This was the previous shloka where he was talking about have an equal vision or some darshita, like in Hindi they call it, towards all the species, pretty much everything around. So we will talk about this. How do we get this vision, right? Is the key question now. So let's talk about this topic. Now, here you have the material realm, and here you have the spiritual realm, right? Now, material realm is, anyway, we know, right? Material realm is God's 1/4 creation. The spiritual realm is 3/4 creation of God. And 1/4 creation is basically a prison house, which is for the conditioned souls who have turned their back towards God and want to keep on repeating here because of their desires. And then 3/4 creation is the spiritual realm of God. Now, some people have this notion that liberation from bondage and samsara only happens after death, right? As you see the feet here, that is death. So when the death happens, that's when you attain liberation. Now, however, this conquering of cycle of birth and death, moksha, does not mean we die and go somewhere. What happens when we say we attained moksha, right? Is it like after death you move somewhere? That is what moksha is. Let's try to tackle this part of it. It's like after death, you move to some spiritual plane, and that's what is your moksha. Right? That is typically how our mind processes this information. Somebody attained nirvana or moksha. That means after death, they went somewhere else, and that is how we normally process or relate this concept in our head. Actually, it is the inner transformation that happens even while we are living. Okay, so let's try to understand this part of it, right? When you are living, then that transformation has to happen. So to talk about that, see, this is the bondage we talk about, right? The bondage is repeating in this cycle of life and death, samsara. Okay, this is where we are in the samsara. Now, bondage when we are alive, right? This is how we are right now. And then you take a flight and freedom after death. This is how this concept comes around, that, okay, you take a flight, you spiritually do something, and then after death, you attain something. That is how it is supposed to unfold. Or your freedom, already attained freedom when you are alive, and then when you take a flight, it doesn't freedom after death. So it doesn't matter. Both ways cases, you are attaining the same result, right? So this is how we'll try to understand it. Is it a flight that you take after death? Or is it a flight you've already basically, it's a transformation you have already attained or undergone, and after death, of course, there's a destination. That is what we are going to talk about. But is it something that happens before, during your life, or after your death? Is essentially what the question is that we are going to try to tackle today. Yes, Sandhya? Already a question, huh?
No,
Yeah.
because you have told us about Birja River, that's why I was kind of
Yeah, the
like,
spiritual, I'm just keeping it high, not going too deep into the different kind of spiritual milestones. So to say, Birja River is also a spiritual destination. It is on the cusp of material world and spiritual world, where Brahmalin or Gyanis, they are, who have attained moksha or mukti or Brahmanand, they reside.
so that's what, what I wanted to ask is, this freedom when alive, is that qualified as moksha, or is that just qualified as vairagya?
No, so it is freedom while alive, we'll talk about it, is called a state of Jivan Mukt.
Okay.
You could become Jivan Mukt either in a moksha state, where you are beyond the cycle of life and death. Now, your destination after death could vary, but that state that we are talking about during living itself is Jivan Mukt, where you are beyond the cycle of life and death, samsara itself. Okay. Now, after destination could vary. Now, you can become Brahmalin if you have attained moksha, or you can get to Premanand, which has different levels. That is a different thing. But in either case, the bigger question that we are trying to tackle here is it something that happens after death, or is it something that happens when you are living? That is what we're going to tackle today. Now, after death, yes, you can get to moksha, or you can get to Premanand. Within Premanand, there are so many categories like Rasgulla we spoke about. You can become Rasgulla, or you can garnish, or you can have Rasgulla prepared in milk. Then it becomes Rasmalai. And that Rasmalai, if you garnish it with pista and badam, it becomes even more tastier. And then you put elaichi and saffron, even more tastier. So all those categories are possible in Premanand. We are not going to get into that right now. It's just like, how do you cross over the cycle of life and death? Is it something, a destination that is attained after death, or is it something that is attained before death? Okay, this is the broader question that needs to be understood in proper perspective today, is what we're going to talk about as well. Okay, now I think I'm going to cover it pretty quickly today. Dhruv, you'll have a lot of time. Okay, so without going too far, now this is not who we are, right? You know by now. You know, this is who we are. The spark between the body. This is just a temporary rental we have gotten that we have to return after a while. Right? You rent something and then you have to reject. I mean, you are forced out of it. We don't even give it back. We are forced out of it. Now, are you forced out of it, or you give it back? Are you forced out of it, or are you give it back? So let's say this is who we are. And then this gentleman comes. Okay. You know this guy, we have seen him, we've forgotten about him. You know who is he? He's Yamaraj, okay, gruesome guy. I told you when I was in Chennai, I met him. Right? One of my friend, his name was Murli Raju. So when I asked him, what's your name? He said, I'm Yamaraj. So I said, all right, good. I don't want to meet you. So anyways, so when he comes, do we vacate the rental or are we forced out of the rental? It's like when the owner of the house comes, he has to throw you out like it happens in movie. He has to call goons and say, hey, take this out. He hasn't given rent for a while. Or you gracefully vacate it. That is a big question here, right? So this is who we are. And then when this gentleman comes, gruesome gentleman, he comes, what happens is, I'll tell you what happens. There's a Scorpio that stings you. Okay. There's a Scorpio that stings you when he tries to make you vacate who you are, right? Now it's not the Scorpio. Okay, let me thicken the plot. It's actually thousands of Scorpios that sting you. Now, the good thing about good or bad thing, see, God has given us an antakaran with thermostat on either side. Thermostat means it has given us an antakaran or a heart or a heart which cannot tolerate happiness or pain beyond a point. Because if we could tolerate pain, infinite pain, then it will become a very miserable existence. Right? So many people who are tortured, if let's say humans are given an ability to tolerate pain infinitely, it can become very miserable. So God's mercy is he knocks you unconscious beyond, if it exceeds a certain threshold. Same thing happens on happiness also, by the way. I'll tell you one thing. There was a guy who hit a jackpot of 100 million. Okay, I don't know, American Lotto or whatever. But he just had a heart attack. So what happened was the day he hit the lottery, his wife was concerned that if I'm going to disclose this news to him, he'll have a heart fail. So doctor said, don't worry. His personal physician, he said, don't worry, I know how to handle it. Okay, I'll handle it. So he had 3 daughters. So he said, okay, I'm going to raise the temperature little by little so that he's able to, assimilate that news. So he said, what if you hit a lottery of 10 million? He starts slow. He said, you know what? That will be so nice, doctor. If I hit a lottery of 10 million, I will pay for my mortgages and everything, all the car mortgage, house mortgage, and everything. So that will be so nice. And they said, what if it is, you know, 20 million? He said, then I'm going to marry off, my daughters with that money. And he said, what about if you hit it as 50 million? He's slowly raising it. He said, 50 million, then I will buy that dream house that dream vacation I wanted to go after clearing off my mortgage and all the responsibilities. And doctor said, what if it is 100 million? So he tells the doctor, if it is 100 million, I'll give 50% to you. Okay, that's my promise. On hearing this, doctor had a heart fail. Okay, so he could not digest that. So that is why it is a mercy of God that he does not give us an ability to tolerate pain and happiness on either side. So what happens is when this gentleman comes and these Scorpios are stinging you, something interesting happens. You fall unconscious. Okay. You fall, and then the stole, you see, it is claimed by Yamraj. Pulled umbilical, that cord is cut, astral cord, which binds the soul to the body. Okay. He's able to cut it and reclaim the soul for its journey thereafter. So the point here is, this is step one, where when this process gets initiated, first, it is so painful that you fall unconscious. And then step two is, of course, you saw, right? The previous one, this is the step two, basically, where the soul is claimed. So it's a two-step process. Death is a two-step process. A lot of people say that that person died peacefully, in sleep itself and this and that. That is fine, but it is not. It is actually a two-step process because first you fall unconscious and then the soul is claimed or the astral cord is cut. That task is executed. Now, if that happens in unconscious state, when you are in unconscious state, God says that whatever you remember at the time of your death, that is what you end up achieving, right? Now, in your unconscious state, how would you remember God? How can you complete God realization? If that is the rule God has imposed, that you can remember God only if you remember God at the time of death, can you attain Him? And how can you remember God if your mind is in pain? Have you had a toothache or anything like that? Just see it. How difficult would it be? I'm having pains right now, and God is the last thing. Unless you are feeling comfortable, you can't even meditate. You can't even sit properly. Right? God is the last thing that will come to your mind when you are in pain. Your body is troubling you, and that is where Maharaji, when people say that Bhagavad Gita or spirituality is a retirement plan, it doesn't work. Why? Because if you postpone, let's say, for example, you are sure you're going to live till 70, 80, 90, whatever the case may be, and there is nothing else to do, then I will do bhakti. But the problem is when your body starts troubling you at that point, then you will start doing bhakti of your body. You cannot do bhakti of God. And God is the last thing that will come to your mind. In fact, the thought when your mind is disturbed, the predominant thought, however you have led your life, that might come to your mind. We don't even know. It is so disturbed at that moment that thinking of God is the last thing that will happen, which is what Bhagavad Gita says. When you think of me at the time of your death, then you can attain me. So it's a two-step process. It is not a one-step process. Now let's take another scenario. Yes, Arun, you had a question before I get into another scenario. Go ahead.
Actually, I got a question from someone because Madhuji actually, because I'm just the co-host temporarily today.
Uh-huh.
So Madhuji has asked me, can a soul or body feel the pain once a person falls unconscious and is burnt before actual death?
Unconscious. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Can the soul or body feel the pain once a person falls unconscious and is burnt before actual death?
Burnt before actual death. I don't know if it'll revive their consciousness or not. Um, it's a very speculative question. See, again, it's my speculation or based on whatever little I have understood of this concept. There was a guy who went to take a bath in a river in a village, and there were about 49 or 50 villagers came, okay, for no reason with poles and sticks. Okay, this guy was a very religious guy. He used to, you know, do his Sandhya Vandan and morning Vandan and, very devoted guy. And for no reason, some 14 and 50 people came with all the sharp weapons and stuff like that. And they were screaming for his blood. And this guy said, he was thinking about, so when he took a dip in the water, he prayed to God. He said, God, what have I done, for these people to come like this, and they are after my, life, and I'm going to get killed. I know that. So God tells him, you know what? I'm actually expediting your karma here. Okay. It would have taken you 50 lives because of your past karma to bear this thing. And I'm expediting it for you. Just think of me. You will fall unconscious. And while listening to the flute, this whole process will get over. So we don't know what God does seated inside us, right? If somebody is fighting a war on the border and the bullet is piercing their chest, we don't know. Maybe God is facilitating that process for them, right? It's a lot of pain if you think about it. Now, what happens, we don't know. It's very contextual, right? For a particular case, of course, he's our father, so I'm hoping he makes it easy for you, and that is why he's kept this condition that you fall unconscious. But if you have to endure a pain because of your karmic reaction, maybe that's how it goes. So there's no formula for that. But there are cases where God takes care of that in that situation. Maybe somebody is feeling a peace, while from a worldly or a mundane standpoint, that person is undergoing, what kind of a terrible death it is. But who knows what God is doing from inside, right? He's seated within. Any possibilities there? Okay, good question though. Yes, I see a couple of hands. Now let me talk about the other scenario and then we can take more questions. It's a pretty interesting thing, right? It's a two-step process. Now this is where we are. Color is different. I'll tell you why. Something has happened. And again, this gentleman comes, right? And the scorpions come as well. Okay, but then you've gotten a shield. Doesn't matter. And now Although the owner has come to vacate you with all the goons, you do it all through your own volition. You see this process? No unconscious business at all. This can happen as well. This can happen only in lifetime when you are living. Okay, so if you have done spiritual practice, you have done devotion, and you have transcended this body, that means you become Vide. Vide, then you are in a right state of mind, even when your life air is being sucked away. You know exactly what is happening. And at that moment, you can decide which chakra and what is going on with your body and which chakra you want to exit from and what to think of. And exactly you'll be able to think sanely and clearly. But it can happen only if it has happened during your lifetime. You have become Vide. You have carried out our spiritual practice to an extent that you can, this doesn't matter to you anymore. You have transcended. How do we transcend that is something we are going to spend time on during this week. What are the practices? What are the principles Lord Krishna is repeating time and again, which would enable us to get to this state? The key thing is for us to not die in an unconscious state where we are able to think clearly and do it through our own volition as opposed to being pulled away. It takes spiritual practice and you have to have transcended. God realization happens or Jivan Mukt states happens when you are alive, not at the time of death. Then at the time of that, of course, you can think very clearly, hey, what's happening? Time to move on. And this is what where I should be heading, kind of a deal. And then that becomes not a piece of cake, but probably easy at that point. So that is the key concept which I wanted to touch upon today. Now let's open it up. I'm sure we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation around it before we get into some of the practical tools that Dhruval is going to talk about towards the last 10 minutes. But yeah, any questions?
Many questions. One in the chat I'll first ask, then I'll ask my question as well. Smita ji is asking, is Vaidehi and Jivan Mukt state the same?
Vedehi and Jivan Mukt state is same. Now that's a good technical question. No, that's a good question. If you ask me, it should ideally not technically not be same. You could be Videhi and yet not Jivan Mukt, right? But if you are Jivan Mukt, you are Videhi.
Correct.
Okay. So converse is not true. You could be Videhi, but not Jivan Mukt. But if you are Jivan Mukt, you are Videhi. Okay. So Videhi is probably an intermediate stage. In fact, when you talk about even the milestones of Bhakti, Videhi comes in a state where you transcend beyond the experiences of your body, and the pain and all that stuff doesn't matter to you. But that doesn't mean you have transcended, you have become Jivan Mukt already.
And actually a related one. Can one become Jivan Mukt without bhakti?
Can somebody be? No.
All right.
Jivan Mukt, you cannot, because Jivan Mukt is going beyond the cycle of life and death.
Life and death.
Going beyond the life cycle of life and death means you have gone beyond Maya. Gone
Which
beyond Maya means the Maya Pati. You cannot do it, without his grace. So you need God's grace to become Jivan Mukt. You cannot.
Videhi one can become without.
Today, as I understand, you could become with their
Yeah.
austerities and stuff. Even big tapasvis and all, they can harness that power. Even if you look at Baba Ramdev, I mean, he came to one of the places with with very low temperature, and even during the ship, I heard he was just wearing his nominal clothes that he normally wears, right? He can sustain that because they are able to generate heat from their body and counter the external environment or temperature with that. So that can be done through yogic practices and stuff like that. But Jivan Mukti is a higher stage. You need God's grace to conquer that.
And so usually when someone is in misery, like say emotional, mental, then they tend to remember God. Like that, help me kind of a situation. Similarly, when someone is in like great physical pain, don't they end up saying, Hey Bhagwan, mujhe utha le? So this context, this remembrance of God, does it, like, of course this is selfish, but does it mean anything in terms of remembrance of God?
Yenkin Prakaran, anything that takes your mind to God. I mean, even if at that moment you are thinking about God, that means you believe there is God. It is better, right? Rather than not believing at all. Thinking of yourself as a composition of chemicals alone. But yeah, will God listen to your prayer and you say uthale, he'll immediately do that? It's a pretty complex, right? I mean, if you are supposed to endure something, you will have to. That is what brings that question to me, which is pretty. I've struggled with that question. Okay, but then if you look at it purely from this concept, even euthanasia, mercy killing, are you truly alleviating the misery they were supposed to undergo, or just postponed it? If I go by Bhagavad Gita, I mean, I'm going to probably Swamiji has answered that question or not. Probably not so much in very black and white. I would love to ask that question. But if you think about from this concept, the pain that you're supposed to bear, which is there in your karmic quota, you have to bear it, right? No matter what. And then if you are, your euthanasia is part of that or not, if you are killed prematurely, then that pain anyway, if it is you're supposed to endure it, you just postponed it. You have to endure it some other life there, right? In that sense. But other aspect of looking at it is euthanasia part of God's plan only, where he's inspiring somebody to do that. So it's pretty complex to understand from that standpoint. But the key here is that how do we practice while we are alive and not think we have a hack or a shortcut? When I came across this concept, I heard that yum yum Swaran Bhavja, like whoever is able to think about me, then they will attain my abode. I said, wow, live life as ever however you want, and then finally think about God and you're done. But doesn't work that way, right? So it's like sleeping for 4 years and going and beating Usain Bolt and winning a gold medal in 100 meters in Olympics. Doesn't work like that. You have to work a lot of very hard for that. In fact, it is said when you die, it's like a slideshow of your life is played, and the predispositions that you have, the tendencies, what you have thought of, it's like that. So it's like all of a sudden the floodgates are open. All the animals are herded together. Animals means our tendencies, our thoughts, they are all crowded together. And then all of a sudden, let's say animals, they are let go. The fence is opened. Then they will start rushing out. And who will rush out the fastest? Whoever is the strongest. The bull probably will come out the fastest. So whichever is your predominant thought will actually dominate your mind at that moment as well. So if you had led your life thinking about money, and yes, that's why you've seen some people when they grow old, they become insecure. They are thinking the thief is coming. They are thinking about the keys, the money, and all those tendencies, they start getting magnified and coming back to you. So that is why every thought that we are harboring in our mind, we got to be very careful about it. If we continue to fuel it, that might be the thought that will persist at the time of death, right? So anything can happen. Okay, anyways, let's take some questions.
Yes, Kumarji. Radhe
Yeah.
Radhe.
Jai Shri Jai Hanuman. So I think the question by that person, I don't know, was a very strange question, but the question was whether the soul or the body suffers when a person is unconscious and kind of burnt. I don't know. That imagination itself scares me, but I don't think the soul suffers. This is again my humble opinion. The soul does not, but the body could, depending on whether the person comes into conscious or not. Of course, as Nitinji patiently explained all these concepts, we do not know, right? And the best part is not to think about all these strange things, but to think of what we can do in this lifetime that leads us to
See, soul is, I want,
conscious.
yeah, Kumarji, just to build on that, just so that we are clear on it. Soul is always untainted. Soul is always pure, right? So soul, when you say soul suffer, it's a figure of speech. What are the faculties or the interface soul has to experience something, which is mind and intellect? Now, only if you are Vide, means you have transcended the body, then soul will not experience. Otherwise, soul, although soul is untouched, but it still experiences misery because of the mind intellect complex and the pain signals that are being sent across, right? If you are in conscious state. If you're unconscious, then maybe not. So,
Okay, Dhruval, Radhe Radhe.
yeah, Dhruval.
Radha Radha, yeah, thanks. A very interesting discussion. Just a couple of comments, I think. One is, I think King Janak was also known as Vijay, I believe. Um, I think Swamiji covered that in one of his videos, probably for this reason that he was sort of detached from his body essentially. Because Deha means body, right? So Vijay might mean something like detached from the body. It could mean other things as well.
Yes.
So
That's right.
Janak was Vide. The King Janak, the father of Sita, Mother Sita, he was Vide. Vide means he was Brahmalin. He would not have that sensation even if his hand is on fire. And that is why Mother Sita, other name of Mother Sita was Vaidehi. Right? Vaidehi is also a name of Mother Sita. Right? So they say that when Panchakuti, they were in the forest, Ram Bhagwan, he went out after that deer, and Ravan comes. Lakshman puts a Lakshman Rekha, and Ravan comes, and he says, Bhiksham Dehi, and she says, Why Dehi?
Hmm.
Right? Because her name was Vaidehi. Anyways, that was just to lighten. Okay, I know we are having a very serious conversation here. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, just one other thing. I think today in the spiritual retreat on the West Coast, Bay Area, I think I was watching it online, but Swamiji, I think someone asked the same question or very similar question to Swamiji.
Mhm.
Basically, they were like, there are two verses. I think one is that, okay, if you remember me at the time of death, you'll attain me, and the other one is that you should remember me at all times while you're living. And seems like a contradiction, but I think Swamiji explained exactly what he was saying, that you got to do one to do the latter, essentially.
True.
So,
So that basically puts us in a question that you can contemplate upon, okay, for tomorrow, because we will build on this topic. This is the vision, right, for different. And how do we develop a vision, equality in vision, okay? And what are the tools and the practices and the contemplation we can employ in our life to get to that vision that Lord Krishna is talking about? Now, Videha is not going to happen, I'm soul, I'm soul, I'm soul. Of course, we have to practice certain things, and then that will take us deeper, closer to that realization. And then some of the tools we will talk about and what Lord Krishna is talking about. What are some of the things that will help us reach that, equanimity or equality in vision that he's talking about? Yes, Tejas.
Radhe Radhe Tejas, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. I just wanted to build on what Kumarji also said, like the soul cannot feel the pain, but the soul will definitely have memory, right? It will definitely have memory persistent across all the lifetimes. Even the experience of pain, although it will not feel the pain, body will feel the pain, but the memory of the pain is something that is retained probably by the soul. And I guess I'm trying to see if my interpretation is correct.
True. You are right, because see, soul itself will not carry it. It will carry it through the subtle body that it has to carry around. The subtle body is our Sukshma Sharir, which has the subconscious, right? Subconscious is a tip, like there's a conscious part of our brain, and then there's a subconscious part of brain. Subconscious carries memories across lifetime, and that is where you see some people, they have claustrophobia. Some people have a fear of water, like me, right? Some people have agoraphobia, open spaces. So many phobias are there. Where are those phobias coming from? Past. Right? Some people, they are gluttons. They keep on eating and feeding themselves. So I think Dr. Edelweiss, he would treat people. He's a Western doctor, very famous doctor, known for treating people by doing life regressions on them, and he would help them by going to their past life and seeing them why they have a particular phobia. And when they understand that he used to use it for his treatment as well. If somebody has, let's say, has died out of famine or lack of food, that person may become, that explains why he's a glutton in this life. So yes, the memory that you're talking about, all the programming of our subconsciousness or the phobias that we inherit from our past lifetimes, they could get activated. And that is something that soul has to carry as part of its baggage, subtle body baggage.
Right. And following up, like let's say someone has a near-death experience, so not death, near-death experience. Will the soul remember that aspect as well?
Near-death experience typically in that life, right? When they come back to life, there are so many examples given in our scriptures as well. Like Ajamail
Right.
had Narayan, he said that, and he saw Vishnu Doot, and this gentleman that we saw today, both his Doot and they Doot, they had an arc. And then we had Anita Murjani and all people in contemporary life who have had ND experience. There's so much of, if you go to YouTube and start looking at, so many people have ND experience. So God gives that. So that continues as an impression in this life. Is part of it carried forward in next life? I don't know. It is probably part of a residual memory, whatever you can retain. But when your impressions of current life fall upon you, typically all the memories, they get erased. And very few people can remember everything, from their past life. I mean, there have been a lot of documented cases where people continue to remember it beyond 7 years, 10 years, but very few. Typically ND has an impact on your current life where you remember it, and then in next lifetime, I don't know how much of it would be retained.
Retained, I see. Okay. Thank you.
So we
Okay.
take all the rest hands, or
1 minute each, and then I know Dhruvil has something coming up as well, so maybe a minute each we can take from all.
Okay. Keshav ji, Radhe Radhe.
Keshav ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Feedback tracker
I
in the
will,
sorry, Keshav ji, please fill out the feedback tracker if you have any more questions. It's a pretty fascinating topic, so please put the feedback tracker if not already. Keshav ji, go ahead.
yeah, Radhe Radhe. Last week I was deprived because of time constraint, and the topic was 2S, speak or don't speak. So what happened at that time, what came to mind was limited, but because I got the time, so it turned a bigger one. So there were 2S at that time, but now I thought of 4Ds at that time. Define, discuss, decide, and document. So 4Ds. For this year, S, there were 2 S's, but guess what? These S's kept on increasing. Speak or don't speak. Then comes situation. Then situation I put like this. You go to a forest or some ranger hiking and all that. Ranger's signboard says, if you see some wild animal, not only speak, but shout, scream, and then sway your hands. Do so many things. So it's not up to that. It was for last week. But today, coming to the main topic of today, I always said I will mention Shloka, chapter 15, Shloka number 8. Shriram yadvapnoti chap tam tikshura graitai tani sanyati vayu gandhan nivasya. In this Shloka, वायु के दृष्टांत से जीव आत्मा के गमन का विषय है. जैसे वायु एक जगह से smell, suppose goes from a garden of flowers, it collects smell, right? And it enjoys that. When it leaves that, it forgets it, goes to other place, dirty place, whatever, then it gets that. Likewise, when soul leaves the body, it collects Suksham Shrir, as you very, very, very rightly said. It gathers Suksham Shrir, Indriya, Man and Buddhi. Buddhi has the data accumulated in our Buddhi. So it takes that, and this lower conscious, upper conscious, these are two different identities. Lower conscious is I'm alive, I'm breathing. This is lower conscious. Upper conscious is I need Gita Gyan. I need Bhagavad Gita Gyan.
Keshav ji, yep.
Radhe Radhe, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you, Keshav ji. It's always heartening when you agree with what I have said. So I think we intersected in a few things today. So thank you. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Shri Ramya, let's hear from you.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Shri.
Yeah, Shri Ramya.
Radhe Radhe. One question from my side regarding Videh part. Like King Janak was Videh, and I think from what I've heard so far from Swamiji and all the lectures, I think I don't know yet that it is easy on Gyan Marg to be Videh because the Gyan says that I am the soul, I'm not the body and all. But in Bhakti, we prominently look like us, like we are playing with Krishna, we are feeding Krishna. Like I talk to him many times, sit before him, and I just keep blabbering. So, how easy or difficult is it to be in Bhakti and to know that your soul, you're not the body, because you're always the body when like you're talking to Krishna or playing with him or feeding him?
No, it's a good question what you asked. So in this case, you're tapping into God's grace. No? He will take you closer to your truth. So in bhakti, you are awakening the true nature of your soul by serving God and by aligning to Him, right? And by loving Him. So God will take care of awakening your true self, and He'll make you get closer to your realization. In Gyan Marg, you have taken the ownership on yourself by negating neti neti. I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not this intellect. So it's nothing like it. It is much more simpler on that case, right? I would say in Bhakti Marg, if you are aligning to the true nature of or inherent nature of soul, awakening it, it can happen quickly because you are adding that X factor also, right? Which is God's grace, which will take you closer on this path. You're taking help from God on this path. So I wouldn't say there is empirically proved that Gyan Margis progress faster towards this than Bhakti Margis or anything of that sort. God is there to cut the sheets of material bondages that you feel, including this body, in the mark of bhakti. So yeah, so I think I would treat it like that. You can ask that to Swamiji, but I don't see a reason why you would say that Gyan Marg would take you closer or quicker rather. Okay, Pratyusha. But yeah, we
Yes.
can discuss more if you have questions. Yeah, Pratyusha, last
Radhe
one.
Radhe everyone. Radhe Radhe sir. Yeah, actually I was thinking about the difference between the Videhi and the Jivan Mukta. And Videhi is actually a state where your soul. Jivan Mukta is God realization. Videhi means you will come back. Other unless you have a Paramatma
Good.
realization or God realization, you will come back.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the God realization means no. Regarding the bhakti, if you have bhakti, these two states will come to you naturally. But you will still have to strive for God realization. And it will happen. So we don't have to worry about it. That's it. Nothing.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about it. You continue to do devotion. Vidya state will automatically come. God will, if you keep on progressing, this is the beauty of bhakti. Whatever is needed would be provided for on this path. You don't have to do anything. Now you have become the Billi ka bacha, right? We spoke about Marjar Kishore, not the Markat Kishore. So Marjar Kishore, a lot of things God will do. You only have to focus on purifying yourself and deepening your love and devotion towards God. Okay, maybe one more Sandhya, and then Dhruvil, all yours to talk about the segment that you have. Okay, you can.
Yeah, no question. Just a comment from Shri Ramya ji after she heard the response from you. Most of the times, I feel God is sitting on Nitinji's tongue while he's answering. So I just want to say this.
If it happens, that's good. Okay, because that's the only time God sits. Okay, so it's good if it is happening and you're feeling that. Okay.
Awesome. So, Dhruvil, I think you can proceed.
Go ahead, Dhruvil, all yours. You can share the screen and talk about. Dhruvil is going to share some practical tools with us. Go ahead, please, Dhruvil. Every Sunday we have that, right?
Radhe Radhe, yes. Trying to figure out how to present. I don't use Zoom that often.
Always. And by the way, please fill out the feedback tracker. We have West Coast retreat going on. Hope you are savoring the beautiful lectures on a lot of saints. I'll try to bring some of those learnings in our sessions as well. And it is just amazing. And then I think the Bhakti Challenge has been launched. Did you want to show something today? Maybe after this. And we have a book launch coming up this Wednesday. So look out for that too. Go ahead, Dhruval. Can quickly.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thanks again everyone for the opportunity to bring you a practical tool based on Swamiji and Maharaji's teachings. So I think last week we covered a lot about the different forms of God. So we'll talk a little bit about how to bring these different forms of God into our life. Yeah, and I think we'll focus on Paramatma and Bhagwan. At least I haven't found many practical tools for Brahman. Maybe there are people who are able to do it, but what I've heard is Bhagwan and Paramatma are a little bit easier to focus on. So we'll start with those at least. So with Paramatma, I think like every hour you want to remind yourself that God is inside you and others actually as Paramatma, and this will help you keep God in mind more often, and eventually at all times you will be having God in mind, which as we covered like slightly before, that's the goal that we really wanted to have, right? And actually, Maharaji and Swamiji also cover this in the context of Karma Yoga. That let's say you go into work and you have an empty seat next to you. Imagine that Krishna is sitting there. It's a little bit more on the Bhagwan side, I suppose, but that'll essentially remembering God is inside you, around you, really helps, and it'll also make it harder for you to do anything wrong. I remember watching this lecture from Maharaji where he says that there's basically no privacy, which I think was a very, very good way of putting it. That like we all think we have a private lives and privacy, but there is someone inside noting everything. So yeah, I think that's the Paramatma side. And when we talk about Bhagwan, I think Roop Dhyan is there's nothing better than that. Maharaji, Swamiji have covered this a lot in their videos. There's actually a linked, very detailed guide to like Roop Dhyan. I think there's some on the JK Yoga website as well. But essentially, you want to take out time to consistently, and consistency is the key over here, like practice meditating and detailing about God. So, detailing his divine forms, names, virtues, pastimes, abodes, associates. Um, there's a lot of ways to do this, like bhajan, kirtan. You can be reading, you can just be meditating. Different people find different ways easy. And there's actually a link in the first one, the 4-step guide to achieve success in meditation by Swamiji, where he talks about the different times where you want to do meditation. It's preferable to do it in Brahma Muhurt, which is like very early in the morning. I think like some of us wake up early, so that's easy, but generally like it's also easier to do it in the morning because I think Swamiji mentioned that your mind is empty, it's fresh from sleeping, so it's more receptive to like everything else. It's not tired essentially, and it sets a good precedent for the rest of the day. And if not morning, then evening. I think there's also like Swamiji had this video where he talked about okay, if you can't do 2 hours in the morning, then split it 1 hour morning, evening. But the consistency is really the key. So yeah, I think that's the practical tool for this week. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dhruvil. Thank you for this initiative and for putting together these beautiful nuggets, practical nuggets for all of us. I'm a struggler in the morning, but I try to do it even before Brahma Muhurat, which is night, right? I don't know it, but just whatever works basically. Sometimes morning, but mostly works for me. But whatever time works for you, Brahma Muhurat is the best one, right? Scripturally speaking too. So thank you for sharing that. I think it really helps encourage each other as well. And any questions for that matter? We have 3 more minutes, or is there anything you wanted to show, Sandhya, on the challenge that is launched or related to?
Like
Okay.
I could actually and start with it today, which was really, really fun. So anyone and everyone who has Radha Krishna Bhakti app with them, check out this challenge is released. This is called Spiritual Secrets from Hinduism, the new book that has already been launched in the retreat, and it will be launched in Dallas soon. So, and the challenge is also started. So what is this challenge about? In this challenge, there is a series of videos, one video every day that Swamiji has very beautifully designed to teach us the spiritual secrets from Hinduism. So you watch one video, which is like the first part. Then there are 3 kinds of activities and quizzes that you can go through, which will basically be based upon that video. You can test your understanding of what you learned, and it'll be fun. Fun also in the sense that you will get these wonderful pots of butter of Krishna as a reward. So, more pots you collect, more you can offer to him, and more you can please him. So, yeah. So this is this challenge, which I think all of us can become a part of. It's a 30-day challenge. And yeah, that's it. And I'll just stop sharing this. And because the retreat lecture starts at 10, we have like 2 minutes. Do we want to do Bhakti Shatak or?
Yeah, we'll do Bhakt. Oh, lecture is going to start. So yeah, we can wrap it because some people might be joining that. So we can
Yeah.
quickly do away with that for at least until tomorrow or today.
Tomorrow anyway. Tomorrow before our class, the retreat will be over. So we are good then.
Today, yeah. And yeah, if you do this challenge, I think you'll get closer to becoming Vide. Money back guarantee.
Mm.
Yes.
And
Anyways,
yeah, awesome.
are you good
And
then?
yeah, looks like.
Okay.
So anyone who has anything else to add, please fill out the feedback tracker. I can make a couple more announcements or
Yeah, real quick, you can do that. And yeah, let's wrap it up then at 10 because I know it's going to start.
yeah, so if you're attending this retreat online and you have this strong feeling that I wish I was there in person, so your chance is not lost. There are more retreats coming up in future, that too in Dallas. So you can also get to meet Nitinji as well in person. And of course, Swamiji, you can attend the retreat with Swamiji. So yeah, so you can check out the Dallas retreat, Dallas Family Camp, and register for it in due course of, well, in time rather. That's it, yeah.
Yeah, Swamiji is an incentive. Okay, can meet me anywhere. So that's good. Thank you for that. And hope you are savoring the retreat experience as well with Swamiji. And like I said, we have a book launch coming up on Wednesday. So look out for that as well. And Radhe Radhe, good night, good day from my side. And we'll continue on how do we get closer to this equanimity or equal vision, and what are some of the practical tools that we can start imbibing and practicing some of the principles of Bhagavad Gita that will take us closer to that state. Okay, so we'll continue on that discussion. Radhe Radhe, good night, good day from my side. Thank you.
Radhe.
Everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Radhe Radhe. See you all tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.